Cold spots, right?
Spots, yeah.
Exactly. So we are literally looking for cold spots with this guy. So you should be able to see me in there, right?
Yeah.
So orange, red, and yellow guy. That means my skin temperature is the warmest thing out here. It's set up to white hot, black cold. So we are literally looking for blue and black pieces to move on their own. Now, we want to try to keep somebody's skin temperature in. Sometimes that can be difficult with a smaller group like this, but of course we're going to be walking outside. We want to try to keep somebody's skin temp inside that, is because when I leave the picture, the orange, red, and yellow is going to go somewhere else. It's always going to try to find that warmest spot. With this too, you should be able to see a blue dot bouncing around. I'm going to try to get the sky out of there. Where's the blue dot at? It's way over here. So the blue dot is always going to show us the coldest spot in the frame at that particular moment. It will move around the screen and it will stay on your recording. However, this bar that you have over here on the right, that's kind of your in-the-moment cheat sheet. If you just want to kind of watch the bar to see where the temperature differences are, you can do that. However, it doesn't show up on the recording. So this does record audio and video, so it's kind of another point of reference for EVPs, which is really nice. We are going to do start and stops with this, only because as great as the hardware is, the software sucks. So if we record for too long, we lose all video. So we want to do, I'll give you the cues. So it's definitely going to go to you. So she seems super excited about the spirit boxes. So sorry, she's going to get the spirit boxes. But with that, you're going to be the cameraman. You're going to keep the camera on your left-hand side at all times. Even when we restart it again, the reason why is because I do splice the videos together. So you guys have one video. That way you're not trying to watch different ones. And then otherwise, it's going to be an upside-down video if it goes to the right. Because YouTube doesn't like the flippies. Because I just splice it together, spot check it, and then I send it over to my website. So that one's going to go to you. He's like, oh yeah, man, hand it over. And again, this is not every night this video captures something. It just, if it's not recording, we're not going to be able to capture something. So again, it's recording right now, just so you know, and I'll let you know when we're going to stop it. All right, so we're going to be using, you're going to be double-fisted. Okay. So you're going to have two different types of spirit boxes. Okay. The first one is kind of like the white noise you guys hear on TV. And Zach Bagans tells you the bullshit he thinks he heard and tries to convince you of that. So these are going to run the same thing, only we're going to, these ones run a little bit differently. These go slower. I want the radio chatter to come through. So you're going to have song lyrics, you're going to have DJs and commercials. If you can make out what any of those things say, we need to know what it is. If you miss something, it's okay. Why? Because this one's going to record the entire thing for us with no background noise, even when I say, well, you're going to have earbuds, so you're going to be the only one hearing this one. Okay. So again, if you want to just keep one earbud in so you can hear the history and listen at the same time, you can. I will tell you that that is difficult to do, but your choice, your tour. But at the same time, it is up to you when you want to turn it up and down. That is all on you. That way I'm not being interrupted while I'm trying to give everybody the history. So I'll go ahead and set this guy up to record. You will get the full recording back tomorrow morning. I'll give you 15 to 20 markers that I find, even if it's not relevant. The reason why I do that is so that you guys get the gist of what I'm looking for when I go through these things, and that way you guys can listen to the entire thing with knowing what I found and kind of seeing, and I'll give you the exact marker per the second. So again, it's going to sweep through the FM radio stations. You can already see that. Your volume, just so you know, is at the very top up here. It's the wheel. It's kind of hard to feel on this one. It's actually a little bit more indented. Just don't hit the button. You'll stop the recording. And I'll get you a set of earbuds that I do not want back.
All right.
So I buy them in bulk.
They're
kind of throwaways. So choose your color. I think there's a gray, there's a pink. I know, most people don't care.
I'll be so cool.
So, the other spirit box you're going to be using out as you're going through the earbud thing, I'll explain what this one does. Okay. So this one works completely different. Yes, it's a phone app. It is called Ghost Hunting Tools. We'll go over more about what apps I trust and what you can actually use for yourself. This one's going to give us a word from time to time in the center of the screen. As you can see, the word site. That was the last term that we had on last night's tour. They already have their list, so I'm going to clear them out and start us off fresh. The cool thing about the list is that it gives me timestamps for everything. So that way I know when to watch the video, when to listen to the spirit box, when to listen for the audio. So that way I can see like what's relevant, what's going to be a matchup for another phrase where we actually maybe had a full sentence come out of multiple devices. Happens randomly. So I say I get probably 3 or 4 of those a year. 80% of what comes out of this app is bullshit. It doesn't mean anything. It's a game. It's a hoax. That's what it's meant for. However, it does have over 9,000 terms and phrases in there, whereas your normal Ovilus, the stuff you guys see on TV, only has 2,000. So again, I like to be able to play with more words. It gives our spirit world a little bit more to play with to be able to generate what's actually coming out of this. The game we're playing, is it from a ghost or is it from an app? However, the things that come up that I might say, oh, that's loosely relevant. So it might say war. Yeah, we're dealing with some vets in this location. But what war? I want the specifics, as do you, which is why you're here.
Yeah.
So again, we're not going to be asking like yes and no questions. I'll go over that further at the first stop. Did you find out where the hole is?
I think so. I don't know.
So you will get the full list back, because sometimes some of these terms might be relative to you. And I don't know you guys like that. Every once in a while, for example, I had an email in the middle of the year. A young lady emails me back and says, suck. Didn't I say that the software sucks? And I don't think I've ever seen that term on here.
Nice.
It's kind of funny. But at any rate, the girl called me back and emailed me and said, the list actually has my name, cat, and radar. Now, her cat's name was Radar, plus it had her name. So we obviously caught her name in real time, but it was a matter of, I don't know her cat's name is Radar. So these are the kinds of things. Right. So it might have been something. Now we have the word button. Very interesting. So when I need to see the list, I don't want to see every term like as they come up. You don't need to like, hey Nick, look, because again, I'm going to be going through some history. You're just going to hit that little white button. Oh, we actually got quite a few words already. So again, circle back, top right, white scroll. That's it. Don't hit any of those down there. That's for me to send it to myself, so I can send it back to you. So we don't want to clear the history. So just 2 buttons on that guy. So you're going to use both of those. I'm going to be using something too, just to kind of enhance the tour a little bit, just because, again, we don't have a full group of 10. You're so quiet. You might be the perfect cameraman for me tonight. Normally, I look for the guy who's going to give me a better commentary, but who knows? Quieter videos might be better.
Now, I don't hear this one right now, currently.
Okay, you
it
turn it up.
isn't. Let's see, you said
Yeah,
the top.
you control the volume.
Oh, there it is.
There you go. So I'm going to keep this guy in my pocket. It's called a millimeter. Have you guys seen these on TV?
Yes.
Okay, so it has this.
Electronic for little
Where this
waves.
Where it measures 3 different things. So the first thing is going to be electromagnetic fields. That's your EMF. Normally it's on a K2 meter. Just so you guys know, like this is the most common piece. It's almost like, you know, the Happy Meal Kids toy to me now. But again, we use this one to try to debunk things. But with this guy, it's way more accurate. I'll be excited on anything over 2.5 on the big number. The bottom number is if you find something as a cold spot on your camera, and we can debunk it or prove it with the bottom number. So that gives us ambient temperature based on the probe at the top, so I can literally measure it to the inch of where it's coming from. And lastly, I don't always use this because it can be annoying when I'm trying to go through history, because it is kind of a beeping, annoying sound. This is a REM pod, so it's already built in. If something gets close to it, it goes a little wonky when you first start it up, not to mention we're still near electrical wiring. So if something does get close, it will make noises. As it gets closer, it'll go higher. So again, they don't work together. They work independently. So again, I'll keep this guy handy and kind of get us readings from time to time. You'll see me write down the readings because obviously this guy doesn't record anything. I'll also record anything that you hear in real time because I might not catch it in my spot check. So I do keep a little notebook on me so that way I can keep track of all those notes, and that way your analysis is pretty complete, even with just, you know, a small amount of tools. So that way you guys can actually go through the history. What questions, comments, concerns do we have now? Is this what we thought, or is this like something way different?
It seems fun.
I don't have any questions. Yeah, this is pretty much what I was thinking. Yeah.
Okay, good. It's not often I get where somebody gets here and they're like, yeah, this is exactly what I wanted to do. Because sometimes it's kind of like it's either way different, way cooler, or they're like, I had no idea I was going to be going to work. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, well, what did you want? Did you just want to hear stories? Because I can refer somebody, because that's just not me.
Nah.
So, let me get my little notebook, and we will kind of get this party started. So we'll talk about why we started here. So I'm going to keep this guy handy. My pen, put that in my bag. Yes. Alright, so that will stay handy. So that way I can get to it pretty quickly when things are happening in a moment. Cargo pants for ghost hunters are an absolute must.
Yes.
My jeans have not seen the light of day in years. So let's talk about why we started here. So Big John's. That's the reason why we started here. So this place actually just reopened as Big John's just a few months ago, so about 2 months now. But it used to be Big John's back in the day, and it burned down in 2015 or 16. Can't exactly remember the year, but Big John was a football player for the 1947 New York Giants. This was his bar. It was named after him. He named that after himself. He used to sit in the back of the bar, and he would tell the bartender, the cadets coming over from the Citadel, if they were old enough to drink or not. One night, 2 guys come in. They're not old enough to drink. So he has the bartender throw them out. They leave pretty pissed off. They come back the next night, and they try to steal the cash register from the front of the bar. John hears what's going on. He gets up from the bar and starts beating the hell out of these 2 guys, just pounding them right into the floor. A couple of shots go off. John gets hit in the neck. Bullet lands in the wall. John gets up after being shot, goes back to the bar, tells the bartender, get me another beer, get the 2 guys on the floor over there, get them an ambulance. So, nobody dies in that story, but what's haunting the place is the bullet hole. It's allegedly still there. I say allegedly because I haven't been back to check since the renovations. I've been too busy with tours. But people that sit in the front of the bar get a little queasy, nauseous, headache. Those kind of very light symptoms. You're going to be dealing with paranormal activity tonight, fingers crossed. Those kind of paranormal activity will cause those type of symptoms. If either one of you feels that, I need to know immediately so we can move us all to safety. Again, it's a heated warning. It can and will happen from time to time. At our last stop, remind me, because it's kind of an add-on to the story that I tell there. Somebody actually just passed out on this tour a couple of weeks ago. It wasn't as cool of a night as this, but it was definitely not heat wave worthy where it was from the heat.
Yeah.
So, and what's weird is that person that passed out, it's definitely relative to the storm, which is what makes it even creepier.
Wow.
So, again, just remind me once we get down there in case I forget.
Okay.
Because I'll be like, oh yeah, remember that person that passed out? Let's get our minds off our own health. So we had a big earthquake here in 1886. Are you guys planning any other tours in Charleston?
Not
really.
this time.
Just doing
Yeah.
stuff. Cool. Every tour talks about our big earthquake because it's an anomaly for us. We're on the East Coast. We don't get earthquakes. So this one was like a 7.4 on the Richter scale. They're guessing because it wasn't invented yet. So they're kind of going off the damage. But anyway, this is where the first death occurred from that earthquake, allegedly. A piece of the mantle you see in the middle of the building, the white piece, also goes around to the front. A piece of it broke off, struck somebody in the back of the head, and killed him. They say you can see his ghost in the middle of East Bay Street in the middle of the night. Now, that came from the previous bar owner. Again, I say apparently and allegedly a lot because I don't have any proof of that story. It's just when I have groups of 10, when I have moms involved that have their kids there, it's a great story as a segue to not think about getting sick on the tour.
Yeah.
So, are you guys ready to go ghost hunting?
Sure.
Have you heard anything yet, or have you had it turned down?
I'm listening to it here or there.
Okay.
Haven't heard anything too much. There's only thing on this one's come up Oliver and Pulse. But...
No, Oliver on Big John's team.
Okay,
Still talking
cool.
about Big John's team.
All right.
So we just had the hoodies made. Like my wife does all my graphic design work, so I'm like, I get to wear the hoodie tonight. Just got him in.
Oh, man.
Huh, she does all my graphic design work.
Yeah, he
so.
does. He roasts coffee. So I do all his
What's
coffee
the name of the
stuff.
company?
Cheza Roastworks.
It's named after our dog.
Just came across some business that it was a black-owned business, and it was where did I see that? And it was a South Carolina business. That's why I was like, oh shit, maybe this is the guy. Because it was like an ad or something I came across. Because I'm like a coffee connoisseur. Like I'm a writer, so I know my coffee. Right now we're drinking cheap coffee because my in-laws are in town and it's just driving me crazy.
Oh no.
We go through it because they're coffee drinkers, you know what I mean? So, and plus me and my wife are coffee drinkers. So it was just a matter of like, all right, hurry up, get the giant box of donut shop for the Keurig, instead of the ground beans and you know what I mean? We're just gonna, run the Keurig.
Yeah.
So, but there is a big box of Starbucks holiday blend hidden in the back of the pantry that I'm waiting for. So, but anyway, so this is usually a great place for when I have my 10 people to kind of practice. It's a one-line piece of history. It's super simple, and it's a little bit relevant to how do I put this? Not relevant, but a little bit more modern than what you would think coming out of Charleston. So it's not the 200 to 300-year-old story. But this is where we keep the horses for the carriage rides. It's kind of chilly. I don't know if you guys can smell them or not, but I can't smell horses anymore. Like 6 nights a week, I just can't do it.
I can't really smell it.
Okay, it's probably, the cold is probably dampening the smell down.
Yeah.
But anyway, the hot July, forget it. It's my customers complain. I'm like, well, this is where we practice, and I can't smell them, so I win. So history here is really simple. This is the same place where we held horses that delivered milk and eggs to the residents of Charleston. That's it, 1860s to 1920s. So normally this is where I really go into the spirit box, instruction, because this is not television. This is not, is somebody here? Because that's what everybody want to ask. If somebody says no, that means somebody's here. So we're just going to stay away from yes and no questions all night long. You guys are here for some actual proof. Yeah. Keep in mind that your question might not always be answered immediately. Sometimes we might get it even a location away. Something that specific. It might come up that close. We're still close to Big John's, for example. You're running 2 spirit boxes. You're technically doing the work of 2 of my 10. So let's say you get the word art over here. It says O as in OH. I'm originally from Ohio. I'm just pointing that out.
Oh.
And what's funny was that actually showed up at my last stop last night. So it's just weird. But let's say you have the word art here and you hear the number 40 on your spirit box on this one. Art Faircloth was number 40 on Big John's team.
Oh.
So that's where I normally use the double clues kind of mentality. So with this one, if you get a direct answer, and we're not going to ask questions here. I mean, we're just going to kind of walk slowly through here after I'm done with this instructional part of like what I normally tell people is ask things you know the answer to. What color is the big red barn? Obviously, that's an obvious answer, right? So you're looking and listening for the color red, but this spirit box is using DJs and song lyrics to convey messages. So the word red might not be there. So like fire truck, blood, heart. All three of those things are specifically red. Last night, we actually got the answer of blood. What color is the big red barn? The young lady heard blood. So again, that's an acceptable answer where I only need one. If it's something else where it's just like somebody chiming in, trying to grab any word they can to let us know that they're here, I normally need 2 clues to verify that. And the other piece of that is most of the stories I tell tonight have multiple people with the same names. Lots of Charleses, lots of Georges. So we need to know who the hell we're talking to.
Yeah.
So I kind of need that extra verification of like what's going on here. Even initials will sometimes pop up throughout the night that I'll tell you about that it could be relative to 1 to 3 people. We just never know what it's actually going to come up with. So again, we already talked about, we got the word coarse, as in like a coarse throat or something coarse, you know, like a contour. So interesting, but I haven't seen
crazy in my ear.
Things can be crazy. But again, I don't know what to expect tonight with the way the moon is going to fall. So there's a lot of things happening in the planetary zodiac world that I'm like, could be weird tonight, could not be. We'll see. But again, that's the kind of mentality that I want you to have with your spirit boxes. Definitely not yes or no questions. Like those are not going to get you any paranormal proof. Again, most EVPs that I normally catch that are disembodied from the voice recorder might be a yes, you know, because it's a yes. It's very, you know, even at other locations, not just from the tours. It's kind of like, damn it, I don't want any yeses. I need specifics. Don't you people know who I am? But we're going to walk slowly through here. We're going to keep recording just so you can kind of get used to, I mean, I think you got the gist. You want somebody's skin tone in there just to, you know, keep that, you know, mentality of the blue and black pieces moving on their own. But instead of trying to get in touch with some football players and horses, let's go learn about some real history. We're going to walk slow just so you can kind of listen in and get the gist. I've already asked the question of what color is the big red barn, so hopefully you get some kind of answer as we kind of mosey through here.
Okay.
Yeah, 62 degrees out here. Definitely hoodie weather.
Yeah. Really funny. And tomorrow's gonna be nice. I think it's gonna be 50.
Well, I mean, I do this year round. So, I mean, I have a stack of hot hands in a case, gloves. Like, people want to go ghost hunting in January, February down here. So, I'm perfectly fine with it because it keeps me working.
There you go.
And not to mention, it's ghost hunting. It's not like I'm working in a steel mill somewhere.
That's
So,
true.
and you guys just booked yesterday, right?
Yeah, I was trying to figure out what to do, which one to do, and I was like, I don't know.
It's usually a no question when somebody comes across, like, because you guys book on TripAdvisor, I believe.
Yeah.
I mean, normally when you start scrolling through all of the different tours on TripAdvisor, it's kind of a, you know, no-brainer once you see ghost hunting versus ghost tour.
Yeah. I wanted to get more involved, a little more involved.
Now, we're actually going to go to this corner, away from the vehicles. Trying to do something. Going up to like 1.5. Oh, there's a 2.1. 2.8. Oh, 2.9. I'm going to stay put for a second. 3.5. Down to 0. 3.1. So 3.5 is the highest number we've seen so far. So just so you know, the little blinky one that I showed you earlier, that one only goes to 25 milligauss, and I have this set up to the same type of reading. That just said 9, didn't it? I do that on purpose because that one goes to 25. I've seen this one cap out and error out at 198. At this specific location, I've seen it go all the way up to 149. That's about what your microwave gives off.
Oh, wow.
There are no electrical lines in this place. at all. Just so you know, and I've only seen that one time here. There's a 10.9, so that's definitely the highest one so far. So I'm going to put it away, so otherwise we're going to stare at it all night, hoping to reach the triple digits. So let me tell you where we're at. This is what used to be the Eliza and Charles Pinckney mansion. We're standing right in the middle of their meeting room right now. So kind of get that layout in your head. So this was the house in front facing East Bay Street. Have you guys, when did you guys get into town?
Monday.
Okay, so you've been here for a couple of days.
Yeah.
Did you guys walk the Battery and notice that the houses go long? They're skinny on the front.
Yeah.
They go long back.
Yeah.
So there's two reasons why they did that. So first off, you got taxed on how much sidewalk you took. So again, skinny in the front, go long back, and that way you can still have your mansion. Not to mention on the Battery down there, they did that because they have the door on the piazza, the bottom porch, because that would force the breeze from the water to go over top into the second floor and cool the whole house. So again, it was kind of their air conditioning, and they wouldn't get the smell of low tide. And we're going to talk more about low tide in a very poverty area, I think is the right term I'm looking for. So very full of poverty, very small shotgun houses. But anyway, this was broad. They did the whole front of their house on East Bay Street because they were very proud. This was a very prominent family, and they didn't care about how much tax that they had to pay. It was almost like bragging rights because there were a lot of politicians in this house. Charles was a politician, and their son Charles, so there's the second Charles, and their nephew Charles, there's the third Charles. The son and the nephew were signers of the Constitution. Obviously, the son was raised here, so this is a pretty big deal for Charleston, not to mention South Carolina. But you guys are on, anniversary week, so we don't want to talk about politics. If I don't bring it up, they will, and I should start leaving it out more because it's almost like without question, if I don't tell you guys that they signed the Constitution, something's going to pop up on a spirit box like, hey, don't forget about us, we signed pieces of paper. But anyway, back to the layout of the house. This is the mansion where it was. And Eliza's garden was lined up with that left tree, the one closest to us, right behind Five Church Restaurant. And then the servant and slave quarters for the home were actually in the back of the lot. It actually overlapped a little bit of where that median is now to go into the next lot. Obviously, it's been altered for modern purposes. But I just want to give the layout of the land before we kind of get started on what actually happened here. So Eliza married Charles at a young age. I'm not going to tell you how old she was. I will tell you that Charles was over double her age. So it's not as creepy as it sounds once we give you the answers if we don't get them out of your boxes. Capability. Interesting. By the way, I'm not going to be giving you questions like what color was George Washington's white horse, like what we did over there with the red barn. Like you're going to get the answers from your boxes. But anyway.
I think I got 13 earlier. I don't know if that means anything.
No.
Was she 13?
No.
Okay.
I said young, not ridiculously
okay.
young. It's
you
young.
Know,
I would say it's young for the times that we have now. Let's put it that way. So anyway, she married Charles because her father over in England thought he was dying. He wanted to see all his kids one last time. She didn't want to go because she didn't think he was dying, so she got married instead. This is the 1740s. There's no such thing as citizenship or green cards or any of that bullshit that we have now. She actually married this guy out of love. So, I mean, it was a pretty big deal. Even after his death, she remained a widow, if that kind of gives you the mentality. There was no affair or anything like that, so if anything like that pops up, it's usually irrelevant. Because people say, he had an affair, I got it out of the spirit box. I'm like, no, he didn't. So, at least not what's in the record books. But anyway, back to Charles and Eliza. So, Eliza, she was right, but Dad got better pretty quickly. So, he started sending over gifts from England. This is the 1740s, so imagine how long it took to get here. One of those things happened to be the plant indigo. So indigo is a plant that makes blue dye that makes your blue jeans blue. You have it on right now. That's what you're wearing. It's indigo. She started it right here. However, it does get pretty cold down here, especially by the water. She had a hard time keeping it cultivated in the winter months. So she had to learn from her servants and slaves who were Gullah slaves, which means they came straight from Africa. So again, I don't know how much you know about how much the slaves were and the Gullah culture that came over here, but these are agriculturists. They know what the hell they're doing. So she picked their brains, had it all figured out, and she moves into a plantation just north of here in Mount Pleasant and calls her dad and says, hey, rice plantations are going downhill. I need some contacts to be able to sell this indigo overseas. We can make a killing. I got it figured out. So now we have an international businesswoman during colonial times. Pretty big deal. Now, the other tourists won't take you here. There's nothing to see. So, but it's a great place for 10 people to spread out and start asking questions and look for anomalies on cameras. So, a couple of weird things about Eliza. She's the second wife named Eliza from Charles. Ironically, both Eliza's maiden name starts with the letter L. So if you want to find out which Eliza we're talking to something comes through that's not indigo related or businesswoman related, ask what the maiden name is. Hopefully you get it. Obviously we're standing in a mansion that doesn't exist anymore. Find out what happened to it and when that happened. Eliza's pretty open about her death, so if you want to ask, hey Eliza, when did you die? What did you die from? Where are you buried? And what U.S. president was a pallbearer at your funeral? You can ask those questions and she'll give you answers, fingers crossed. They might not be immediately, but you'll get them. Let's see, the children. I told you there was at least one. His name was Charles, right? Signer of the Constitution. There's more. You can ask how many boys, how many girls, get some names, and leave it alone, because there is a tragedy among those kids that if we start poking the bear, all activity, including any readings from my millimeter, will stop. And not to mention, it won't just stop here. The rest of your night will be shot. So normally when I have my group of 10 people, I usually tell them, don't poke the bear and ruin the tour for everybody. Because all activity will stop. And I usually know it, like halfway through the tour, I'm like, we're not getting anything going on. Somebody asked a question. I normally get an email or a phone call later apologetically that somebody poked the bear with Eliza's kid. So just kind of leave it alone. We'll see what happens. If she wants to talk about it, I'll know based on what you're telling me of what you're hearing and what we're seeing. I mean, that's just kind of how this goes. I think that about covers all the bases for now, just to kind of get us started with some of the questions. If you want to go rogue, I mean, we're going to stick together. We're not going to separate. We'll kind of mosey around, and I'll, obviously have the millimeter out to kind of see where the hot spots are, so you know where to stop and ask those questions. And even with the motion detector, I may do some, call and answer type stuff, like, hey, Eliza, get close to the metal stick if you're here, make it go to this color, because the color indications that come up on there are all different. So they go from green, blue, purple, orange, and red. So again, green and red are obviously extremes. I don't like extremes. I want definitive pieces. So I usually ask, make it go to purple. And again, I'm here 6 nights a week. They know the damn routine by now. Again, if you guys want to go rogue with the questions, by all means. Have you heard anything so far that I need to know about?
I haven't noticed anything that was, a lot of it's in the middle, not straight songs, except for I heard more that way than like straight out words than before.
So just so you know, this device can go off based off my movements. I have it to the smallest setting possible, so that way every bug that comes by me doesn't make it go off. And I will reset it from time to time, and I will tell you, like, that is definitely not me. I reset it, that kind of mentality. So you'll see me clicking it, see how it went off based on me just jerking it around a little bit. I'll reset it, and it stops. So I will not make any false positives for anybody tonight. I don't do it any night, because again, I like to see the paranormal stuff happen in real time just as much as you guys do. Anything crazy that you've seen on a camera, your eyes have been locked on me this whole time. I know that, but I mean, anything that you've seen that come out of there so far that may have been moving on your screen?
No, not really. I've been particularly trying to keep an eye on on the little blue dot.
Okay, and that's it's hard to do on that small screen. When I get it back to you, I actually send it to YouTube first, so that way you guys can watch it on TV if you want. A lot of times, if something is like very questionable, like me and my daughter will pop it up on the TV to get a better look at it and kind of see like what's changing, what's moved, what could have been influencing it. We look at the different camera angles from the other camera, because we use a full spectrum camera now, which gives us a little bit better of a view. Because it's not as colorful as that. So that way we can actually see people's faces and say, oh, this person pulled out a bottle of water, that's where that cold thing is, that kind of mentality. So, but you'll be able to do the same thing. But I watch it on my computer screen, which is a desktop, pretty large, so that way, we have it set up that way on purpose, obviously, so I can watch video in detail. But my office is pretty ridiculous. What other terms do we have? Go ahead and bring up that.
Oh My Love came up on here, and Skin has popped up on here.
Go ahead and hit the little white scroll, the white box. There you go. Let's take a look. Thought Scan. I've been trying to keep an eye on it as well. That Oliver's thrown me off. I don't know what that is, and I don't know if there was a grant that played on Big John's team. Keep in mind, we're still close to Big John, so something might pop up from there. It'll be a weak link, like it might only be 1 or 2 clues, but it might be. Okay, come on. 3.2. What did I say the highest one I had before was? 10.9? 10.9, something like that. I do need to write that down. See how I forget things so quickly? I do this 6 nights a week. It's hard to remember everything that happens unless I write it down.
That's all good.
I might actually just shut that part off, so I'm not blinded by it for a minute while I write that down. And you didn't have any specific terms that you heard over at the Big Red Barn, right?
I think 13 was one of them.
I think that was here, right?
Yeah, here, and then Crazy over there. And Oh My Love.
Reading in the dark has become a new skill.
There you go.
So let's kind of mosey around a little bit. We are going to stay away from vehicles. People don't like the cars being filmed. Granted, if we were car thieves, that would be my first tool, because I can see how long they've been here. So
yeah, that's true. That's true.
There's a 5.9, 6.3.
Did she dive tragically or something?
Not necessarily. I wouldn't say tragically. Not like from a sudden. Come on. This thing's pretty sensitive tonight.
Okay, so I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
Like, based on what I'm seeing now, since I'm not really used to, looking through,
Sure.
like, thermal or anything like that, what makes me get interested is that, like, this big open space,
Mm-hmm.
like, it's, even with, with a person in the frame, it still has a lot of, like, like light green, some orange, like, red,
Sure.
as far as that. But over in the area that we were just in, when we initially walked up, there was like a lot of black. Not quite in the corner, but almost like in that little area that doesn't have any rocks.
So this ground, you want the explanation? So the ground that we're standing on right now has way more dry concrete and gravel in it, and that has more of a muddy surface. So if it rains, you can see the mud come up through the gravel. Mud is always going to be cooler because it holds water. Concrete is going to hold the heat from the sun for a few extra hours. So again, I've seen, and even the wall, if you highlight the wall is always going to be warm, unless we're at 32 degrees or colder out here. So again, doing this seasonally the way that I do, when I first started it up and I'm kind of looking at it before I explain it to you guys, is I'm making sure the temperatures are kind of legit of what it feels like out here, because sometimes the camera's too warm because it was in my bag. So I kind of wait for it to cool off. I open the bag first and kind of let the cold air hit it so that way I can adjust before I even turn it on. With stuff like this, I know that there's mud, concrete, gravel, there's all kinds of things in here. So that would be the reason why. Hopefully that's enough, because that's the exact, I can't explain it any further because that's the legit truth.
That makes sense.
And down and air. Earthen. That's kind of
I will
we're
tell
talking about the earth.
Well, I will tell you, it's not uncommon for me to get terms around gardening in here. So I'll get things like dirt, dig, shovel, seeds, stuff like that will pop up. So anything wrapped around gardening, like earthen, would probably it's almost like she would be like plowing, like to earthen it up a little bit, so that way she could. I mean, I'll look up the specific definition to make sure it matches up, but that's the way I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah.
This thing is way sensitive tonight. I don't know what the hell's going on with it. And I have it set low. Double check. Yep, it's set the small setting. And what sucks is back here where the certain slave quarters were, when things do pop up, I can't prove them. Because there's no records. So again, in Eliza's letters to like other politicians and her kids and stuff, like we're going to talk about that here in a minute. She does mention a few, but they're first names only, and doesn't really tell like what their jobs were, which is something specific to them, things like that. So back here, I can't prove anything unless it's a direct like, hey, what was your job? And you get cook, or something that was relative to the house.
Yeah. I just got 1,000.
You got 100 when you came in here. 100 came up on the blue box.
Oh, yeah. A lot of numbers.
Yeah, numbers never lie. So they usually mean something. I may not always find it, but they usually mean something. Names and numbers. That's why I look at stuff like Grant. I'm like, who the hell was Grant?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that could be a first or last name, unfortunately. So
yeah, that's true.
Not a whole lot going on back here. last night I was holding it just like this, like I've been doing, and it wasn't doing anything.
Huh.
Tonight it just seems to be hopping all over. So some nights it seems like it's a little bit more sensitive than others. Try this corner up here. You know how to use all these boxes we're using. Give us some kind of messages, get close to the box I'm holding, make the numbers go up. And never use terms like what they do on TV where they say, get close to this device, or get close to the millimeter there, it makes lights, you can play with it. No, it's a box.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
If it's blue, red. Obviously these are terms that have been throughout time.
Mm-hmm. Everything else.
I
nobody
always
knows what it is.
speak in the language that as simple as I can based on where I'm at. So again, I never say get close to the millimeter. This is a black box with a metal stick.
Yeah.
Like that's all it is to them.
Exactly.
6.4. That's a good sign. Come on, give us a little bit more. One of the reasons I like coming up to this corner, I actually caught something on the thermal imaging camera. They called me up here because the whole team thought they were seeing shadows. So I was like, I came up to debunk, because I don't normally go based off of people's feelings. So I watched the video the next morning. I actually have 2 living people walking down past the wall this way, and then about, 15 seconds later, 2 dead people walking this way. And somebody was always in view. They were black in color, and I've had it analyzed by firemen and mechanics that actually use that on their daily job. So it was kind of an eye-opening moment. That actually happened last July, not this past year, but the year before that. It was like, yeah. So it's still probably the strongest piece of evidence I have from that camera, that you can't deny what it actually is. It is 2 heads, black in color, which means it's the coldest spot. Unfortunately, it was an older version of that camera, so it didn't have the blue dots. So it just had crosshairs. I'm not getting any readings. Are you hearing anything at all? Eliza, Charles, Thomas, anybody at all? Some kind of clue. Get close to these boxes. Tell us messages. Tell us anything you want us to know. 4, 7. 6. And we're getting like slight readings, but this is pretty common for this ground. I was hoping for something a little bit more exciting than 3 to 7. Anything you want to ask directly? Is there anything that's popping up in your head?
I suck at this game apparently.
It's kind of game.
I know.
It's just like there's a person in front of you. What do you want to know? What was the most curious question that I kind of gave you?
How did Eliza die? I guess that's the...
Eliza, tell us how you died. Can you tell us? You can use the blue box that Kim is holding or the red box. Try to be as still as possible with this to see if it's going to give us anything. Eliza, I want you to tell us how you died. Make this box go to blue again. That went straight to blue, which means whatever was there was pretty close. Eliza, make it go to blue again. This is the game we normally play. Got to get close to the metal stick. The temperature's dropping, so we went from 61 when we got in here down to 59. What's your temperature say on yours? Just kind of like in the center crosshairs.
It says 79.
Is it like red in color?
It's blue.
It is blue. Anything coming through there at all? Even if you don't think it's relevant, it might be.
I hear blinding lights from the weekend for it. Okay. And it was just the musical parts.
Okay, and that's okay. Sometimes lyrics are part of that. Eliza, why don't you tell us how you died?
56. Is that anything?
56.
Rational.
Thomas, are you here? You are. You know how this works. You got a little bit of a blue signal. That was not for me. Can you make it go to blue again? Thomas? Make the black box go to blue. You just got to get close to the metal stick. Well, I'm going to give this another minute since you're not hearing much.
Yeah,
I'm not
I heard
seeing
post.
Much. Post?
Yeah. That's about
8.6, that's good. 5.4, go back up again. Come on, Thomas, get closer. So, let me get you guys some answers. This has been pretty light, to be honest with you, based on what I normally see out of here. But again, the red spirit box is not exactly the easiest job. In fact, it's the hardest job out here because I'm asking you to use one of your senses to do something you're not used to making it do.
Yeah.
So, Eliza was 22 when she married Charles, who was 45. See? Not so horrible. 23 years difference. You heard the number 13. They were married for 14 years. So, again, he died and she remained a widow. So that was in 1759. So you said 56, which means one of the kids could have been possibly born in 56. That's why I went straight for Thomas. Just wanted you guys to kind of know where my mentality was. I don't know it for perfection that way, but I am going to dive into if there was one of the kids born in 56. Thomas was the youngest. That's the reason why I went after him.
Yeah.
Let's see. What mansion actually caught fire in 1861. So that was almost 70 years after Eliza's death. So that was in the Great Fire of 1861. We've had dozens of big Great Fires. Every tour guide is going to tell you about a Great Fire. This one started at the Harris Teeter grocery store up the street about half a mile. Came down here, took out half the mansion, and then literally went to the other side of the coast. So it went from Peninsula Coast to Peninsula Coast. It was a giant fire. So pretty big deal. The Eliza's death, let's get into that because there's a lot of details. First off, she died from breast cancer. We didn't even know what breast cancer was in 1793. We're going based off our medical records. So take that for what it's worth. We do get the word breast cancer here a lot, even if it's just the word cancer by itself. What was funny was last night, it was almost like the Pinckneys were following us around town. I had another couple. It was just two people last night too. So it was kind of a matter of everywhere we went, there was another very relevant term to the Pinckneys at every stop. It was weird. It was almost like they were following us around town. It was kind of eerie. But it actually showed up. Anomalies. I don't think I've ever seen that word pop up either. I wonder if there's been an update to the dictionary.
I don't know.
I'll have to check on it when I get home. But she was 70 years old when she died, which is a long time to be living during colonial times. Let's see, the president that was a pallbearer, George Washington. At his own request, wanted to act as a pallbearer at her funeral out of respect to her of what she did for this country. So her indigo actually helped save the colonies, believe it or not. So just that little bit of commerce coming in was a big deal for us because rice plantations were going to shit. It's just kind of how it went down here. Keep in mind, I also played a little mind trick on you when we got here. I told you I was not going to give you questions like what color was George Washington's white horse. So I do that on purpose to see who's subject to those subliminal messages. You guys
I
did not.
I thought I heard you. I do that
on purpose, so that way if you come up with George Washington right away, it's kind of all right, they're a little bit subject to subliminal messages. I look for words like wood or teeth even, because he had wooden dentures. Cherry, the name Martha, anything like that relative. That way it's almost not like, hey, I heard George Washington. First off, that's a lot of syllables to be coming out as an EVP, but that's exactly how I learned that he was a pallbearer, is I had the same EVP twice in 1 week. Why the hell are we talking about George Washington on the radio? Don't ask me why. But it came up in the same week, and I was like, shit, there's got to be a relevant piece of information here. So lots of research. Again, tourism office doesn't teach me this stuff. I'm trying to think, what else did I have? Oh, the kids. Let's talk about them. So Charles, of, signer of the Constitution. Then there was Thomas. He was the youngest one. He actually lost, he didn't lose a leg, but he was in a battle, the Battle of Camden, just south of here, Revolutionary War battle. He got shot in the left leg, which pretty much shattered it. So he was on a cane the rest of his days. By the way, you can stop your video now if you want to, kind of give your hands a break. If you don't want to start it that way, go ahead and stop it and restart it. Start it this way, it stays that way.
Ah, okay.
It's not like not this dark. The restaurant underwent a fire a few months ago.
Oh.
They're kind of going through some repairs. But still, you're down here. All right, we can go.
The murders happen. Crazy stuff.
You guys stop here and get any of the buildings. Alright, so to kind of give you the gist of what this place is. It is considered a quiet area. I just started doing the earbud thing, by the way. This is part of the reason, is because we do run into areas like this where we're next to a hotel. Somebody's obviously in that room. But this is when we crossed that last crosswalk coming down East Bay, we entered into where the original Charlestown walls used to be. So this is one of the very first streets we ever had, which is why I like to come down here. The reason I ask you for a list of names is because these two giant buildings were not here. Little tiny shotgun houses. Again, we talked about that somewhat at the beginning. But people used to live here, and I do have the full list of residents of every person that's ever lived here. Interesting thing is, the names I normally get are Benjamin and John. You gave me an Adam, which is a good possibility. I don't have it memorized. It's not a lengthy list, but Benjamin and John show up all the time. And it's more of a residual ghost. So the Pinckneys were more of an intelligent ghost. This is residual, almost like they're doing the same thing over and over and over again. So about every 6 to 7 weeks, I usually get their names together, either on different spirit boxes, but it's always in the same night. They both lived here in 1801. That's 2 out of 5 people that actually lived on this street in 1801. Those are pretty good odds, and it's the same Benjamin and John all the time. If we mistake which John it is, because yes, there were 4, we get a last name, Johnson. That's John's last name, John Johnson. I know, poor Sal. Slap that guy's mother, because I would be pissed. I'm John Johnson. But anyway, the other reason this is an interesting place is because I told you about the smell of low tide. The wall over there, obviously, was on the other side of East Bay Street, coming south towards closer to the Battery. What happened was the smell of low tide would be coming through this very narrow street all the time. I'm literally standing on somebody's stoop right now. So again, their houses were tight together, so this was literally locking in that kind of smell. So it makes sense that they were lower class. To verify that, they did do an archaeological dig underneath these original clay bricks. Found silverware, tools, clothing, kind of verifies what kind of tools they were using. Definitely lower class tools. The reason why this is called Lodge Alley is because the Freemasons had a Masonic lodge here. Before it was residential. I will get terms like clay brick. I'll get Illuminati. I'll get Mason. That'll show up from time to time. So it's just a matter of like, what do they feel like giving me that night? Is it often I get things from the Freemasons? Not always. They're very secretive. So take it for what it's worth. Very interesting alley. Not a whole lot of tourists come down here, as you can see, which is one of the reasons, I like to come down here, but a lot of people won't show off that this was more of less like part of the history of one of our first streets. When the other tourists do come down here, they're talking about boo hags and spirits in blue bottles and that kind of stuff. I'm like, that stuff's all cool and great and superstitious and all, because I'm very superstitious. But let's talk about what actually happened here. Actually get some kind of proof, instead of just, here's some spooky stories. Did a lot of things happen down here? Sure. It suffered a little bit of damage from the earthquake. Lots of fires happened down here. You can see fire damage underneath the clay bricks from where they dug. They did get that influence that a lot of tragedy would have happened here. And it wasn't a whole lot of people that lived here. 4 to 6 people at a time. It's not many.
Yeah.
And it was only during like a 65, 70-year period. So take that for what it's worth. Again, it's obviously not very good living conditions, or else it would have lasted a whole hell of a lot longer. So you can kind of feel for these people a little bit.
Yeah.
What we're going to go through from here, we're going to actually be entering a neighborhood. So once we exit the alley, I want you to cut the video, and we're going to kind of give it a break again. We're going to go to another alley that I've actually been booted out of.
Okay.
The reason why is because of my gadgetry that you guys all get. I won't take you down the alley, but I definitely love to tell the story. I get evidence from it almost every single night, which is super cool. It's a great story if you're into duels and things like that. After that, we're going to probably go into some myths and legends based on what's going on with your blue spirit box, or maybe some things that you're hearing, because around that corner there's a lot of stories. So again, I know which ones are true that we can prove, which ones are not. So depending on what happens with the spirit box, I'll kind of follow the evidence. If there's nothing there, we're going to go straight into a female pirate over at the Powder magazine, and that is a doozy of a story. That's a hell of a way to end the night on a female pirate in Charleston. So again, very interesting. That is a hit or miss location. We can either get tons of activity or nothing at all. I mean, it's literally one of those, oh my god, check this out, or like, guys, I got nothing. So I never know until the night's over and I go through the data the next day. So we might hear some things in real time. I'm not gonna lie, I am disappointed at the Pinckney Mansion site tonight. That is usually one of my hotbeds. Like that is normally like thriving. The 10.9, Giants in 20. I'm excited about that, but it's not gonna give me enough to show me that the Pinckneys were actually still hanging out there. So
I got 4, the number 4 here in the red. Yeah, not too long, like a couple minutes ago.
Okay, I say because 4 would have definitely been relevant back at Pinckney, because that's how many children there were.
Oh.
So again, always
might be later.
Yeah, just like it was last night where they were following us around. Interesting. Let's cut through the rest of this. So do you have like a coffee shop, or is it like an e-business? Like, I want a card before we split, go our separate ways.
Oh yeah, it is an e-business. So right now it's just roast and ship. But it has potential. I do have a couple partners.
Than auditory.
Most people are, and that's why we record it. So that way, I'm going to go through it in the morning, and
that's good because I probably missed some things.
This guy will not normally give me much either. This millimeter in this location, like I will pull it out. Ooh, I pulled out the little probe. Yeah, this. I've had to replace this part twice now, and it takes forever to get it in.
Oh, goodness.
So if anything happens here, I'll be super surprised, but I'm also excited at the same time. Your thermal imaging camera does like to act up in here, especially on smaller groups. If you start seeing little white glitches go down your screen, almost like old school televisions, like the white staticky, like the white noise kind of thing on there, yeah, let me know, because it's happened here quite a few times. Hasn't been of late, but it has happened on more than one occasion.
I am here.
Oh,
Who is here?
Yeah, exactly. Who the hell is here?
What's your name?
Ann, give us your name. And it's definitely colder here than it was at the Pinckney Mansion site.
Yeah.
So it's like 56 degrees. I don't know what you're showing, but my ambient temperature says 56.
Oh, so it has like a little range, I guess.
Can you tell us what's howling? Did Jack go down like a dog?
But it was not. That's what I heard. I don't know. But it was not.
But it was not. Anne, Mary, anybody here? Give us your name. That was not me. And I didn't see how high it went, but it sounded like the next level of green. I wasn't watching it. And can you tell us the name of Jack's ship?
Assembly?
It's that dog howling again. That's just creepy.
Yeah. Adds another level.
Tell us anything you want us to know. We've got a couple of boxes here you can touch or get near. Give us messages through. Whatever you want to do. It's creeping up, but nothing significant.
Yeah.
Like it's still staying underneath the number 1. Like it's right around 5.5 to 0.7, which again, 2.5 and higher is what I look for any kind of significance. Let's move around a bit. Maybe we're just in a bad signal area for you. Drop down to 0 back here.
Lauren?
What was it?
Lauren?
So, one of the that was for me.
Okay.
One of the places I wanted to add on to, there's a cemetery right around the corner from here, where one of the Pinckneys is buried. However, it's kind of like a much later in the Pinckney line.
Okay.
His name was Henry Lawrence Pinckney.
Oh.
And the only reason I brought it up is because I was kind of like, let me see if there's anything related anywhere.
Yeah.
And I found his grave one day walking around down here trying to find extra pieces to go through. Henry? Henry? I would love to tell people your story. He actually owned a newspaper called the Mercury.
Oh.
So again, very specific terms that I could use to add to an investigation. However, I've been up there 4 or 5 times when I'm always like, hey, let's go try out this extra spot. Never got anything from it.
Huh.
Except for the name Lorenz a couple of times here when we're relatively close.
Recommend again. It's the second time recommend is coming up.
At this location?
Not this one,
Okay.
but one down that way.
Anne or Mary? Can you tell us your father's name?
Run.
I call that part of the 80%.
Yeah.
For sure. Anne, can you tell us where you're from? I'm actually up by like 2 degrees. So we started like 56 in here. Now it's up to 58, 58.3.
Huh.
And tell us where you're from. Oh, why this thing's being so sensitive. The wind will not affect it. That's what makes this so interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I've put this thing in front of like space heaters before, and just to test the temperature and make sure it wasn't going to affect and it did nothing.
Huh.
A space heater blowing right on it did nothing.
Wow.
I mean, it affected the temperature, obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But I was testing the REM pod part of it to make sure it wasn't going to be like, oh, is a breeze going to come by and somebody's get a false positive out of it.
Yeah.
Anne or Mary, tell us where you're from. That way we know who we're talking to. They're from 2 different countries. Mary she was considered an English pirate, and obviously Anne was considered an Irish pirate.
Oh, yeah. View.
That could be something on the camera.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, you gotta take the cues of like if
One
it says
or the
temperature or camera itself. One night something came up and it said no camera, and the camera stopped working.
other. Oh, wow.
Like, it was almost like, yeah, we're not videotaping me tonight, and it
No.
shut it off.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
That's what happens. Again, nightly basis. That's why I keep coming out here.
Yeah, you just never know.
That was not for me. And that went to blue, I saw that much.
Yeah.
Ann or Mary, tell us where you're from. Those blips are not for me, and there's no wind right now, just so you guys know. Not that the wind would
Yeah,
affect
we're
it.
not moving that much.
We need to know where you're from. And you're not hearing anything?
Mm-hmm. I've heard like a lot more like piano music. Now I'm just hearing like static going through.
So through static, even when I'm spot checking in the morning, I'm listening for those disembodied voices, the
Okay.
non-radio chatter. Because
Okay.
I've caught a few here and there.
Okay.
Disembodied voices in spots like what we go through they're a rarity. They really are. Even the stuff you guys hear on TV, most of it's probably staged. Most of it.
Yeah. Except.
Except what? Come on, Ann. Give us something. I'm gonna have to wrap this up. Can you make it go to blue and stay there? Got to get closer to the box in my hand. Got a red light. And if you get close to the metal stick, you can make it turn different colors. The only thing that reminds me of is why they call Calico Jack Calico Jack. He wears the jackets of the men he kills.
Oh. No.
Let's head slowly towards up the wall up here and see what pops up. If not, we'll collect it. Where'd you guys park, by the way?
We actually, I think it's where the red barn is, actually.
Okay.
So,
Just so I know what direction to get you guys back to. Unless, of course, you're going somewhere else.
no.
And there's a dessert place down on East Bay Street if you wanted to hit that. Sorry.
I do like
Didn't mean to be
desserts.
spending your money for it.
No, we spent way too much money because we eat too much food. We just tried Jenny's last night, and that was pretty. I love ice cream, so that's my general.
Couple little blips. Again, I don't expect much out of the EMF reading, but if I can get something out of the motion detector,
Yeah.
couple little blips, but nothing that's really noteworthy. And this point 8.9, I mean, we're pretty close to the electrical wiring there, and it's steady. Like, it's not flickering in any way. Like, it's solid on. So that usually tells me that it's something man-made when it's a rhythm or a pattern. So, all right. Well, I'm gonna call it. We'll take your earbud, like that spirit box one last, so you can continue listening.
Okay.
So don't pull it out yet.
Okay.
But go ahead and stop your camera there, Dee.